so much. Anyway, hi
Epic
everyone.
voice.
Hi everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of 3DMs in a Tavern. With us today are myself, Lance, and Spy, the usual suspects, and our guest. Introduce yourself, Nick.
Hi, my name is Nick Uroseva. I am the Dungeon Master of Tales of the Voidfarer, which is a D&D 5e actual play inspired by Spelljammer. And I'm happy to be here.
Cool. It is super cool, and we are so happy to have you.
In case you
Yeah,
can't
thanks
tell,
so much for having me.
in case you can't tell, we listen quite a bit.
Well, that means a lot. It's great to know that people are enjoying our shenanigans and appreciating all the work that goes into it, because boy, is there a lot. But it's fun. It is very fulfilling.
I can imagine.
So, this is just about our usual shindig. We have some questions, and we're going to answer them to the best of our ability. So the first question is from our friend Minnie, who asks very simply, and we've answered this one, so I think we're going to let Nick take this one. Not necessarily from the podcast. It could be a home game. It could be any gaming experience you've had in your life. The best Nat 20 and best Nat 1 stories you have.
The best Nat 20 and best critical failure that you've ever had or ever seen.
Oh, man. Okay. I think the best Nat 20 probably is from Voidfarer, because it was so unexpected. So I guess spoilers for Voidfarer. For anyone who wants to watch, which you absolutely should. Highly recommend. I'm biased though, but
we could give non-biased recommendation if you need it.
Sure.
I totally recommend, but I'm also kind of biased because space and stuff. So
yeah. But anyway, it was in the not this most recent episode, but the penultimate episode of chapter 2, when Ravnus was talking to the mutated dragon brain. She rolled a nat 20 to deceive it. To basically end that encounter, which was so unexpected but so cool that I just had to facilitate that because damn, was that cool. Man, Nat 1. I have to admit, I don't remember the Nat 1s as much. And I, as a DM, will do funny stuff with them, but they're just not as memorable as those super cool, epic Nat 20 moments,
I hear you.
So
That's
I'm kind of struggling to think of a really good Nat 1. I do have a runner up for a Nat 20, but it's not actually a Nat 20, but it was like kind of that same Nat 20 moment sort of deal. And it was in a Curse of Strahd game that I was running, which was probably my favorite campaign that I've run to date. But in the final battle with Strahd, the cleric used divine intervention and succeeded, which isn't a nat 20, but still rolled, to succeed, rolled below his level. And after trying all campaign and it never working, it finally worked, and it allowed. And what happened was Strahd had kidnapped an important character from his backstory, from the cleric's backstory, and was holding him hostage. By floating him out over the ramparts about 100 feet away. And Strahd said, I'm concentrating on that spell. If you attack me, I could drop him,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, they were like basically in this standoff. And in that moment, the character used his divine intervention to save his friend. And it was amazing.
Oh. That's an arms outstretched moment right there. That's
right.
fucking awesome.
Sure. And I had the player stand up and roll the die behind my screen and walk away before he even looked at it. I described the scene, so he didn't know what was going to happen. So it created this really intense emotional moment, and I was able to ramp it up and then do that reveal. There was tears at the table. It was great.
That's so fucking awesome.
Honestly, divine intervention might be harder to land than a crit.
It depends, like at lower levels for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the higher level you get, the easier it's getting, and that's by design. But
right.
mhm.
But awesome. Thanks for those stories. That
No
definitely
problem.
broke the ice pretty well. Oh, here's one. One of my cast members, Shay, asks, have you ever had your dice rolls line up with a character you've played in like perfect and unexpected ways? Now, I know that in design of the game, the things you're good at, you're gonna roll better for because of bonuses and stuff, you know? But like there are times where a character who may not have that proficiency, but you've kind of imagined them to be a certain way, just can't fail those kinds of rolls for some reason. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe they don't have the persuasion skill, but they are kind of a charismatic character with a little bit of persuasive ability in their RP, and they never fail a persuasion check, and you don't know how. That sort of feeling, you know? I think Shay was specifically calling out Andrea Rogue, who cannot roll below a 16 to save her life.
Wow. Just have that dice mojo, you know?
Yeah. I don't know how she does it, but as soon as it becomes a rogue-esque thing, she cannot roll below a 16. Her bonuses will make things like 30s happen, and I just have to sit there and cry. These are like level 13 characters getting like 30s on their rolls and shit. And I know I'm partially to blame for giving them cool items, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only partially to blame.
I'm trying to think. So I think kind of the other end of the spectrum. I was playing in one of the few times I've been able to actually play a character recently, but a friend of mine was running Dragon Heist, and I was playing a half drow paladin warlock multiclass. And the only way that happens is if you have an incredibly low wisdom, which he did. I had a wisdom of 7. It's like, you know, like I am devoted to my god, but if you say the right things to me, I can totally be persuaded to do whatever you want. So like, you know, mysterious shadow entity is like, I can give you more power to do your goddess's bidding. And he goes, sounds good. But yeah, so I had a super low wisdom. But at the same time, it didn't matter. Whenever I was rolling an insight check, I would still roll like garbage. So even though I already had a -2 to all of my insight checks, I would still roll less than a 10 every time I was rolling. So it was just that like weird dice synergy where it's like I was already bad at it, but the dice just made it comically bad at it. To the point where like even to like notice stuff like or with my party members, you know, it would just be we would just start assuming that Cole, my character, would just not notice. So I was just role playing him as completely oblivious to almost everything. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, so you mean me in real life?
Can't relate. Lance, Spy, you got
that's excellent. I still think that the most auspicious accidental dice rolls happened when I've definitely told this on the podcast before, but the moment when Jatai was hung by his ankles through a trapdoor to shoot an enemy that was like 40 feet away or something like that.
Hanging upside down and shooting has become Jatai's
trademark. It started so it started as an intentional thing. Like this was a miraculous series of nat 20s and max damage rolls that I got. That not only I got, but like the people who were helping me out also got nat 20s on their strength and dex to actually hang me. So that was like the dumbest and most badass thing I've maybe ever done in D&D. And then several other one-shots later, through a series of accidental nat 1s and nat 20s, hanging upside down and shooting things has like become Jatai's signature move in a sense. Because he got a nat 1 to look through a skylight and tripped and fell. And then our gnome barbarian, who is like, 3 feet tall and has a perfect 20 strength,
I love Tim so much.
Oh my god, Timmy Alice is the funniest. Grabs the 6 foot tall Tabaxi by the ankle and is hanging him through the skylight. And I got to shoot automatons through the skylight while hanging upside down. And by the third time, I just give it into it. So I'm like, all right, I use spider climb and I get on the ceiling and I start shooting things.
At this point, it's gonna happen.
At this point, it's just this is his character now.
Walks into a room. Is there a skylight?
You don't understand. I started when I started playing this character, I had no personality parameters except for I'm playing this as cat. Like his mannerisms are all cat, and one of his like key character traits is he must have the high ground at all times. So if there are rafters, he will take the rafters over any couch or chair.
Nice.
Lance, anything? Any dice synergies you can recall?
Yeah, I would say it's probably Dantean, my drow gunslinger, arcane gunslinger. He did not like people. But every time, like he was the one that was like most, how do I put this? You would not go up to him first to ask him things because he was the most kind of intimidating out of their group.
Mm-hmm.
But he was the one that kept rolling all of the persuasion and all of his charisma-based like skills that were not supposed to be charisma. Like his charisma was not supposed to be good. He was not supposed to like people, but he was the one that would keep rolling nat 20s on all of his charisma-based stuff, except for intimidation. She was proficient in.
Oh man, that is just ironic.
Yeah, he hated it. Everyone would always come up to him and he's just like, damn.
It's just like Hallie's boyfriend or husband's orc that she talked about last time.
Oh, the orc, yeah.
Yeah.
Could not roll an intimidation check to save his life. Superb.
Charisma was his second highest stat.
Oh, that's superb.
Okay. I think we've succinctly answered that question.
Succinct? No, sufficiently, yes. Succinct?
Fair.
That was not succinct.
Fair. There's a reminder from yourself, Spy, if you wanna ask the question past.
Yeah. So now we start to grill the guest.
Oh boy.
No, I really love the whole concept of Voidfarer. Like, it's so special in podcast. Like, I haven't seen another Spelljammer or even Spelljammer style podcast. That the closest that I can think of is actually the 20-Sided Adventures cast, which is more like space arcane punk sort of. So I was curious, like, what sort of, like, how much of the Spelljammer source material you actually use and how much is like your own devising and such.
It's a healthy mix. Now, I'm not using like really anything of the original Spelljammer text wholesale. But what I am doing is I'm looking back at that and using it as inspiration to what I am, doing for Voidfarer. And even the stuff that I take, like the ships or specific like Spelljammer races or monsters, they still go through a process of like reinvention. And that in the same sense of like, I guess, for example, we look at like how did 5th edition D&D reinvent a lot of the monsters from that era, that AD&D 2nd edition era, because they're not conversions. That's not, the same thing just converted to 5e. They take those concepts and they reinvent them, keeping in mind like the 5th edition design philosophies. And that's kind of the same process that we do when we try to take something from Spelljammer or 2nd edition that hasn't been converted yet and bring it into our game. A great example of this is the asteroid hoppers, or asteroid jumpers rather, which are the little teleporting rats from Spelljammer.
God, I love them.
They're a lot of fun. Well, see, the thing is that in original Spelljammer, they're pretty boring because their teleportability is not something they use in combat. It's just like a way to explain why you can fight rats on an asteroid, because they can teleport to other asteroids. And it specifically says they only teleport, in response to like population pressures and stuff like that. I'm like, that's boring. Let's give a swarm of rats a blink dog's teleportability. That's fun.
And it definitely spiced up the combat a lot, I would say.
Right. Because, a swarm that can bamf from one enemy to another is just so tasty.
Oh, yeah. There were a lot of moments in that section of combat where I could practically hear like the meme from JoJo, Nani teleports behind you. Nothing personal, kid.
Except it's about 400 rats.
Except it's 400 rats.
The worst thing ever.
But yeah, we look at a lot of like the cool Spelljammer things and see how can we reinvent them to make interesting, set pieces, I guess, in Voidfarer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think B also had a question on that same vein.
Yeah, obviously Spelljammer has its own unique creatures, races, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
And reinvention's classic. And because I've listened to Voidfarer, I know a few of those, but I think just in case people listening, is there like a few you want to highlight? Like that someone who's playing D5e may not know exists and may not, and like you may just want to tell them about them because they're cool. They may want to implement them next campaign.
Yeah. Absolutely. So like actually there's a lot of Spelljammer elements that have already kind of like on the DL been converted to 5e. Things like GIF, which is available in I think that's the the Mordecai and Stoma foes is GIF, the Niyagi, which are like spider like slavers. They're in Volo's guide. The Githyanki and Githzerai are already in 5e. These are things that are very prominent in Spelljammer and have already been, low-key been brought into 5e. But then in addition to that, we wanted to do things like Doar, which obviously Luckbeak Humboldt, one of the player characters, played by my friend Saker, is a Doar, which is a penguin folk.
So cool.
Yes, and that's a race from Spelljammer, and it's really funny. We did some reinvention on that too, because if you look up the original Doar like black and white like ink drawing from second edition, they just look like penguins. Like they're not like anthropomorphized at all. They're just big penguins with a bandolier on. Like so we did some reinvention because obviously you can't hold a crossbow with flippers and stuff like that.
Right. It is literally just a macaroni penguin.
Yep, absolutely. So we did some reinvention with that. I have some sketches on what I thought it would look like. And it's also doing things like we did the same thing I was talking about before, where we're like, we look at the original versions of stuff that have already been converted to 5e. Like if you look at the original second edition Tabaxi, it's not much better than that. So we kind of looked at how Tabaxi was actually brought to 5th edition in the artistic changes, and then kind of tried to do the same reinvention for the Doar. So I had some sketches, and then when we had our original our official artwork commissioned, I passed those along to our artist Rachel Guzak, who's awesome, by the way, and you should check her out. She's at 8-Bit Ribbit on Twitter and Tumblr. And she basically took my ideas and ran with it, and we created our 5th edition version of Doar. But the actual stats were my own 5th edition homebrew based on the 2nd edition information. So, and there's a lot. Doar had like a lot of racial abilities in 2nd edition, so I actually split them up between 2 subclasses. because it was a little ridiculous, kind of basing things off of 5th edition. They're like, they have a racial telepathy, and they have a fanged beak that they can attack people with, and they can, do all kinds of other crazy. I'm trying to remember them all. Let's see.
Penguins OP, yo.
Yeah, no, they just had so much stuff. So they had like psionics where they can like cast detect thoughts and like read people's minds and stuff. And then like it was a lot of stuff. I'm like, this is a lot for one race. So let me take some stuff and put it in one sub race, and then another and put it in another sub race. And that. And I'm not the first person to update Doer to 5th edition. I found some other ones, but none of them was really
what you were looking for,
working for me. So I kind of just took matters into my own hands,
as you do.
Yes.
Do you have any plans to like? And this isn't a question that was written. This is just me tangenting off. Have you ever considered like putting that stuff together somewhere? Like,
we have. DM's Guild is like the obvious choice, but unfortunately, right now, Spelljammer is not allowed on DM's Guild. And that's because they're only limiting the stuff they're allowing people to publish on DM's Guild to be related to their current published settings. So you can do Forgotten Realms, Eberron, Ravnica, and all that. I don't think you can do Exandria Wildmount because that's a weird Critical Role thing. But yeah, like there's a lot of restrictions on what can be published on DM's Guild. So like we could do something, but we would have to be like really careful about how it was put together. So like I do know there's like a Doer race that's a homebrew Doer race that's on D&D Beyond, I found. But anybody can create homebrew stuff to just put up there on for free. But we thought about it. We would have to be careful, like kind of like presenting our Spelljammer rules, but in like the sense of like, oh, it was a Spelljammer that crashed on Toril in the Forgotten Realms, and like that sort of thing to kind of like make sure we stayed compliant with their restrictions,
Yeah, you'd have to tie it in. Although with the inclusion of the Warforged, you could also tie it to Eberron as well.
Yeah, that is true.
So you have a couple of outs, but it would have to be, you would have to word it very, very specifically.
Yeah, I think it'd be harder to do with Eberron because Eberron has its own cosmology, and I think people get confused on how that would work with Spelljammer. But I remember finding, it was like an article or a video where they were talking about that, like Eberron's cosmology kind of is like a microcosmology that exists in its own crystal sphere. So it can still exist within Spelljammer. But it's just like an extra layer of complexity with trying to like tie Eberron to Spelljammer, but we got around it by just saying like a bunch of Warforged just up and left. Because why wouldn't they? People suck to people are just terrible to Warforge on Eberron.
It's true.
Nick, I have a question from one space captain to another. You were saying that you have a pretty healthy like equalness of stuff from Spelljammer and homebrew stuff that you've created. What do you think is your most favorite homebrew creation in Voidfarer?
Ooh. Huh. So I'm quite partial to the shambling flesh creatures, the dragon flesh creatures of the of the second chapter, because that was entirely homebrew. Because I was trying to think of like I wanted kind of like an aliens type threat where it's just this like unending swarm of enemies. And then obviously it was the result of a ancient dragon meeting some terrible demise by some invisible threat. Maybe we'll learn more about that. But
spoiler.
Eyes emoji.
Right. But yeah, so it was like kind of like just a result of like kind of wanting that vibe, and it seemed to make sense for the story we were telling, and there wasn't really because there was like a short period where I was like kind of looking through the online resources for Spelljammer, like, is there a monster that already exists that kind of does what I want? And I really wasn't happy with any of them, so I'm like, all right, time to put on the homebrew hat. So, but again, everything we did with that and the inspiration for that and how it came about was inspired by kind of things that already existed in the lore of certain monsters. I talked about like psionics warping, certain creatures, and they kind of like pieced together that it might. They speculated that the dragon like was the result of like mind flayer experiments or something, and that's a pretty good theory because like there's something like the mind witness, which is a beholder that has been transformed by like mind flayer experiments. So we were kind of like, I was kind of like following a similar idea where it's like, if enough psionic energy bombards a dragon to the point where it kills it, what does that do to what's left of the dragon?
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that was kind of the inspiration and idea for that. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. And it was such like a interesting and different thing that I've seen in D&D thus far. So.
Yeah, I really loved that chapter. It was very hair raising, if you will.
Yeah.
As someone just gonna say it, monster making may just be my favorite kind of homebrew.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah, I love it
races,
too.
class features stuff, that's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always super interesting to give your players something they've never seen before, a threat they've never encountered,
Mm-hmm.
Now, a little more lighthearted question for that home brewer in you. Have you ever just like gone for a drive and seen two animals and been like, yes?
No, but I do pull inspiration from a lot of other including just like random shit on the internet. Like there's plenty of like photoshopped animal like combos that I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of run with that, or even just like just other random shit. Like actually there's an account that I follow on Reddit, and they have a Twitter as well, which is called It's a D&D Monster Now. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it if you haven't heard of it before, but like it started on Reddit, and it would be random posts on Reddit, whether it's an image or a story about something. And this dude would just drop into the comments and drop stats for what that thing would be if it were a D&D monster. Basically
awesome.
Making it a D&D monster now. It's really good. I haven't checked. I haven't seen anything from them in a while. They might have stopped. But if they haven't, check them out. And even if they have, there's a huge backlog of things that they've done. So I kind of pull inspiration from that, where it's like literally anything could be the spark for an idea for a D&D monster.
Nice.
Actually, that segues pretty nicely into the horrible D&D idea that I have for this week.
Oh, please.
So yeah, this is horrible D&D ideas that I must try out ASAP, and this is from the More D&D Monster Facts post by user Prokopets, and I thought this was really funny. There is no such thing as the Tarask. The creature is a plausibly deniable fabrication employed to explain away the collateral damage of poor decisions by high-level adventuring parties.
I kinda love that.
D&D kaiju are just cover-ups by Fantasy OSHA or whatever.
Oh man.
There's so much you can do with that. Like, your tavern's on fire? Oh, must have been an elemental,
Wow.
Okay, but like that sounds like a thing that could happen. Forgotten Realms like advanced a couple 100 years into modern civilization.
Right?
I mean,
I've been meaning to. In my reworking of the concepts behind the Escape Artist campaign, I've gone from like, with all the memes and shit that my players have thrown at me, just in the first couple of sessions, I've gone from like your average typical fantasy world to I kind of want to do suburban fantasy. Like that's not something I've never seen done a whole lot, at least.
Onward.
Yeah, like okay, well I haven't seen Onward yet, but something like that where it's like it's a fantasy world that has achieved the modern era of a sort, where there's the internet and there's memes and there's Blu-ray and you watch stuff on your scrying stone and whatever.
Because
And Fantasy OSHA exists.
the joke I was leading into is elemental insurance.
Elemental insurance, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that you would have to include acts of God under insurance because gods exist. Insurance would have to cover acts of gods, plural.
Or just even like you could set your tavern on fire and collect the insurance money claiming it was an elemental.
Exactly. Oh my god, insurance fraud in that world would just
Add
be
an extra layer of complexity to insurance fraud.
I think we've just made the most heinous D&D villain in history.
Oh my god, I have a campaign plot now.
No, the media is just ablaze, pun intended, with these strings of elemental attacks, and in fact, it's just a very creative arsonist.
And we've circled around to Spider-Man: Far From Home, but D&D.
It's just a fire ganassi who really wants to get their name out there.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
What? This is I kind of dig it now. I kind of dig this character now.
I can't even remember because I know I have the in-joke of Fantasy OSHA, but I don't remember what sparked it. I know it was from a one-shot. And there was also...
It was because we were playing your first session of... You played the first session of the Escape Artist.
Oh, the test dungeon. Oh, that was the test. Oh, was it about drinking the water? I think it was about drinking the water. That was the Fantasy
OSHA
thing.
About drinking the water. And then I had just watched the Brian David Gilbert video about Smash Brothers OSHA violation, and so I mentioned that, and then you made Fantasy OSHA a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was also when I was testing I banged out a RPG system for my Arcane Punk World Sphera, loosely based on 5e in about 2 weeks last fall. And I was doing the test session for a group of my friends here at university. And one of the players was a Gorgon, and he was at the bar and he was just drinking really heavily, and he was making jokes about how he'd lost the kids in the divorce and he'd had a bad day at work. And then later on he joked that he had scale mail, right? But he joked that it was a business suit. So he's got this business suit that is just all chainmail. Including chainmail tie, and a little bit later he was saying something. I think he mentioned like stabbing his wife, or no, it was like getting stabbed or something. And one of the other players goes, "What do you even do?" And he goes, "I'm a contractor." We just all lost it because what fucking contracting work do you do? Where you stab your wife in the divorce?
Hey, thieves guilds need real estate too.
So I've actually been working on a upcoming project that I guess I can hint here. But it is D&D and fantasy, but incorporates a lot of modern, like, anachronistic elements to it. But we've been kicking around the idea of doing a podcast miniseries where I run D&D for my brother's rock band, who have all almost never played D&D before, but it would be in a world, a fantasy world inspired by like music and the power of rock, and like totally not brutal legend, if anybody's familiar with that, but definitely that same vein. So, you know, you have things where adventurers are going out, but all adventurers are musicians because of the power of music. So
It's
oh
a
my
world
god, it's a
with a
world
bard
full of
to
bards.
yeah, well, see, you know, bards are just the lead singers. They're just the front men.
Oh, okay.
But due to the power of rock and roll, all adventurers get the inspiration to create music, and then musicians, through the power of rock and roll, like, it goes both ways, like, get the power and abilities to become adventurers. So like they are all one and the same. So like a band can do a rock gig at a bar and then get approached by somebody to go handle some task, because everybody knows that all bands are also adventuring parties.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, but it would have this like anachronistic element to it where there's like, you know, hot rods and electric guitars, and like the adventurers are in their like spike studded leather armor with, you know, Converse Chuck Taylors on, and like, so it's like that's kind of the aesthetic that we would be going for. But yeah, that was just a cool idea that I had that we're kind of kicking around in pre-production.
Oh, that sounds so rad in like the most fundamental definition of the word.
Hey, Spy, I think only you will appreciate the humor of this one word. Shira.
You have to explain it now.
Yeah. So, over with the Frostwalkers, she showed up in episode 1, but then her player Misty had got a really nice deal for an art college, and, you know, life had... Dude, I still keep in touch with Misty, and the work she has to do is fucking insane. Misty, if you're here and listening to this, I fucking applaud you. You had to make a video game for a project. What the hell?
Damn.
That sounds awesome.
So when that happened, I totally understood why Misty couldn't continue playing, you know? Because, like, oh my god.
Yeah, you started Jaegering.
Right. And so, like, good. And so, like I said, Misty, if you're listening to this, holy fucking shit. But, her character was a bard, an Aethereal bard, which is a homebrew DM's Guild race from the Tome of Strange Beasts or Tome of Strange Creatures or something like that. I'll remember it eventually. And it's like, what would happen if a humanoid mother was possessed while pregnant, and the child has like remnant ghost like ability, so they can like see into the ethereal plane, and pale skin, and their hair floats up and defies gravity, you know?
And they have basically a ghost familiar.
Yeah,
That sounds awesome.
it's such a cool race. One of our current players is an Aethereal now, Finley. So,
and her ghost is Ambrose, who is the snarkiest little shit to ever exist.
He's already dead, so it's not like he has any inhibitions anymore.
Imagine Casper, but just a rat bastard.
The way I described him to Finley's player was like, basically imagine the typical shitheel little brother character, and also give them the limitations of immortality in a ghost form.
It's wonderful. But Shira is a bard who is like an emo rocker.
Nice.
So she does like gigs and concerts and stuff within the town.
That's awesome.
And because she's an Aethereal, she can pull off that aesthetic even better than you might be able to otherwise.
The ultimate goth.
Just metal AF.
Misty legit told me that the day she created Shira, like, she was thinking about how she had went to an Evanescence concert literally 2 days before and went, well, this is just fate now.
Nice.
This segment has gone off the rail.
Yeah. As it usually does, frankly.
It's quality content.
Ah, man. Okay, well, Spy, is that it for
that was the whole point of the segment is just to spew out this horrible idea and see what we can do with it, you know. So I think we've done with it. So, what other questions do we have?
There's a few. Our friend Amelia has a very specific call out post to me. But who knows? It's have you ever made like a next gen OC or character based on a character you already have? So like there's that joke of that person who's playing D&D for the first time, their character dies, and then they look at their character sheet, write the word junior on it, and are ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like that from that joke facilitates the idea of like, have you had a character who maybe you ended up making a character like that was their grandchild or the direct child or just somewhere down their descendancy in a unique way?
I don't get to be a player enough for that to have ever had the possibility of happening.
The forever DM.
For a relatable feeling. One that I'm being unshackled from very soon, but
Nice.
a relatable feeling.
Yeah. I can't say that I've ever done that, but B.
You're gonna make me talk about Erratarin, aren't
I'm gonna make you talk about Rin.
you? I don't know how much about her I could get into, but I will describe her personality because she's very fun.
We'll describe the origins of her so we understand.
Yes. So Rin was the brainchild of myself and one of the players in 20SA, Abon. Hi. Because we were doing an RP in the 20SA server. And in that RP, because it was an AU and a very crack AU and very just RP and fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The main NPC of Campaign 1, Calum, and her character Daythorn got together. And just on a whim, we created a Fire Ganassi Moon Elf hybrid named Erratarin, who would be their like direct descendant. And they became a wild magic sorcerer, and everything went off the rails from there.
As they do with wild magic sorcerers.
Yes.
Yep.
This is the character who B played when I was running the puzzle dungeon. The aforementioned puzzle dungeon, the Fantasy Osha one. And the peak of that session was I let her be able to hear the Bigfoot god in her head. Now we don't have time to unpack all of that.
Yeah, but just the deities in Spy's world were based on cryptids, I think is the one sentence explanation.
And Bigfoot is the god of shrooms, basically.
Makes sense.
So she
the patron of Portland.
She wanted to impress him. And so B goes, I'm going to bottle flip this thermos that I have. And I said, oh, okay, what's in it? And he goes, vodka. I'm like, okay. And he goes, and I also dab while I'm doing it. I'm like, all right, roll, I guess. Of course he got a natural fucking 20.
It was the best roll I had that whole game.
I never in my life thought I would hear someone say I rolled to bottle flip my thermos full of vodka and dab to impress the Bigfoot god. But, you know, that's just how D&D is.
Roll to be lit, fam.
Yeah.
I haven't played Erratarin in way too long because I feel like every time I play her, she just becomes more chaotic. And it's one of those things where it's like, you're saved for special occasions.
Yeah.
She probably will end up having a different origin eventually because I love the character a lot and I want to use her beyond the place of a super crack AU. So she might end up with like her own, like a different origin at some point, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I still love her. And that's partially why I want to redo her origin a bit.
That's fair. Well, that was a long string of questions. Hey, you know what time it is?
Lance?
I'm like literally just jumping up and down in my seat. It is time for Lance's Pun Pub. And I have a pretty good, horrible D&D dad joke today.
I'll bring
Since
it.
Since we were on such a big topic about bards,
Oh no.
Oh God. Duck and cover.
why was the bard so good at learning monk skills?
Why was the bard so good at monk skills?
Was a simple key change.
Oh. Oh no. Oh dear.
And that has been Lance's
Bravo.
Pun Pub.
It actually took me about 3 seconds to understand like the full weight of that pun. I
have another small one if you guys want it.
Okay,
Hang
go
on.
for
Hang on. Was that just sorry in reverse?
it.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
I was.
All right. Bring it on.
All right.
Let's have round 2.
Round 2. How big are giant spiders?
Just way too big,
How
my
big?
friend.
About 8 feet.
Fuck!
God damn it.
Nice.
Oh, good lord.
Thank you.
I mean, not after
Oh.
the barbarian gets done with them, but fair.
Then they're about 2.
No, they're about
God
that would be about
almighty.
12 feet, but like splattered in all directions.
Not
You're right.
whole feet, but
No,
Whole
they're
feet.
in fragments.
Incremental.
Not talking about the circumference here. We're talking about
Oh, fuck.
Oh, that was great.
Bravo.
Lance's Pun Pub. Okay.
All right.
gave me this power. You knew what you were going to do.
I have one from Shay again, who asks, what do you like most / least about one of the NPCs that you are currently using?
I have to think about
So-
that. I just have so many. There's so many.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think now is the time where we mention the crew of the Voidfarer are like our babies and we love them all.
They're my babies too.
I gotta say, Scriv is my favorite character. I love him so much.
Oh man, yes. Scriv is one of the first NPCs I developed. He is one of my favorites.
However, you did go a little, pardon the pun, overboard when composing the crew of the Voidfarer, because there are a lot of characters to keep track of.
There are, and I was trying to like only see. I wanted the Voidfarer to feel occupied.
Mhm.
And in that sense, I think I succeeded, but at the expense of like, okay, you actually like, there's a lot of characters to actually keep track of. They're not all important, but they do all have names. So I was trying to like mention the characters so like you at least saw them in passing, but like they're still only maybe the like 5 or 6 important characters. But at the same time, like, you know, other things happen on the ship, and I pull in those other characters as well. It's been a balancing act, and I'm kind of learning the best way to present it as I go.
That makes sense.
It's an ever evolving process.
And depending on what your characters do, who becomes important on the ship might change.
Exactly.
Like
Ravnus being obsessed with the turtle cook Coot.
like Coot, yeah.
Unexpected.
Or our new tiefling frenemy, perhaps?
Yeah. We'll have to see what's going on with that.
Yeah, that's that had me. That I was listening to it while I was playing No Man's Sky, and I had to pause the game and just think, said out loud, "All right, Nick, what the fuck are you planning here?"
I was planning that like after credit scene, if you will, since the start of the chapter, really.
Oh wow! All right, this is very premeditated.
Yeah, in one form or another, and then it became even better after Luckbeak's action in the second chapter, where he snuck aboard the Xena Syndicate ship and gave his name to one of the agents of the suzerain. Which I'm like, all right, well, it's on now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that needs to pay off pretty quick, I think, or at least hint that like things have been set into motion, which was the whole point of that scene. But yeah, Odyssey is an interesting character because he was like, obviously when they had the whole discussion about Captain Val, he was one of the ones that was very aggressive against Val. And so to kind of like have this reveal at the end that he's somehow connected with the Xena Syndicate is interesting. We'll have to see how that goes. That actually came up when I was talking with Saker, who plays Luckbeak, about downtime stuff that's going to happen, because we're going to pick up in chapter 3 and a whole month will have passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then like the way we're planning on doing it now is probably the first half of the episode is going to be them talking about what they did during that month. And then we'll like pick and choose certain things to actually like role play out. So we'll kind of jump around in certain scenes over the course of that month period. And then the back half of the episode will be now 1 month later and what's happening then. So that might come up, obviously, because I can't imagine that Luckbeak is not going to confront Odyssey about that.
Right.
But who knows? I have learned to stop trying to predict what Saker is going to do with Luckbeak.
Yeah. Predicting a rogue is just, it's like asking a dog to meow.
Yeah. Well, and he is simultaneously the most roguiest rogue and the least roguiest rogue I've ever like DM'd for.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing not just a rogue that like steals stuff, but a rogue that is a con man.
Yeah, he's very much playing to the strengths of the mastermind subclass that he's rocking. But then on top of that, to be like a pacifist that is kind of like not too super keen on killing people, kind of ignoring that whole like sneak attack feature that is like the whole rogue is built around. It has been interesting because it basically means I have to like think a lot harder about how I structure combats. We talk about it a little bit in the Q&A episode that we recorded the other day that'll be up next week, about that a little bit. But Saker actually said combat is like one of his least favorite things as a player, which is not surprising to me. But yeah, it's just about seeing what your players want out of the game and then kind of like tweaking it. That's why the final battle in the Githyanki Vault was set up the way it was, because it wasn't just about hitting the monster until it was dead. There was hitting the monster to slow it down, but you couldn't actually kill it. So you had to either talk with the brain to like get it to stop, or to set up the beacon to, then try to run out of there. So there was like multiple moving parts and multiple paths to success. And that's kind of the philosophy I'm going to be trying to take when I set up encounters from here on out. Because
it's a good
Luckbeak isn't going to want to hit the monster. Not really. So making sure there's things there that everybody can do to get to the end goal.
Yeah, that's a really, really good design philosophy when you're setting up encounters and such, is there's not just the one. It's not like a puzzle. There's not just the one solution to the puzzle. There's always going to be, you always have to leave room for your players to do something unexpected and just roll with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think this question was about NPCs.
Originally it was, yeah. That's the beauty of the show, though, is just it's meant to be a place where we can just ramble and people like it for some reason.
The tower.
Yeah. So what was it? Like a favorite thing about an NPC and the least favorite thing about an NPC?
What do you like most or least about one of the PCs or NPCs you are currently playing?
Okay. So I love Scuttlebutt as a character, but I keep procrastinating on actually coming up with his list of phrases that he knows. So like, and then naturally I won't do it. For those listening, Scuttlebutt is a Kinku who doesn't speak. He only mimics, but he has like a library of like phrases that he has learned. And I have yet to actually put together that list of phrases. So whenever the party decides to randomly go talk to Scuttlebutt, I have to like improvise. So maybe eventually I will put that together, but that's like kind of an annoying thing about like playing that character, which I love that character so much. But it's an extra level of complexity for running him on.
Oh yeah. Lance, you got a NPC that you want to talk about a bit?
Yeah, I actually have two that are like, I wouldn't say they're my least, but they're definitely, I haven't gotten to really introduce them in the way that I wanted to. One is Sito.
Yay! Love that boy. Love him.
He's turned out to be more of a PC than I was hoping he'd be.
Yeah, DM insert. And that's a call out to B too.
He was mainly just supposed to be the cute AI that, you know, helps out every now and then, but his character sheet is like, I took the Warforge and tweaked it a bit to fit the lore that I have connected with him. And so he's just he's not allowed to go with them anymore because they fail their roles and then he has to save them a lot. So but then another NPC that I dislike playing so far because I haven't had the opportunity to really express him in the way that I want him to be expressed, and plus I'm just not that evil, is Gabriel.
Yeah.
Not been able to, like, they always joke when he comes around and stuff and call him Gaby Baby and everything, but I haven't been able to portray how just messed up this man is yet.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing that.
There's a big twist with that boy, but I'm excited to like be able to dive deeper with that NPC. And I really like, there's the hot scale, as you all know, which is a vital information for my players apparently. And so I have to think about where they would land on that scale, because if they're below a certain point, the players are not going to want to talk to them. So all like not important NPCs fall below like 5 on the hotness scale, because then I know the players won't talk to them and won't be interested in them. But yeah, those are the two that are like I'm having trouble playing as NPCs, is Sito and Gabriel.
Huh, that's interesting because they're some of the ones who've been around for.
Yeah. And they have so much more to offer too. It's just,
yeah,
haven't gotten there yet.
I get you. I have to ask because this was, if you recall, one of my earliest theories, like episode 2 theory, was that Gabriel is an Asimov. Is there any truth to that by me, or is he just a human?
So I will spoil this right now. Gabriel is an Osmar.
I knew it.
That's an appropriate name.
Yep. And it's fitting that an Aasimar would go after a crew that is half tieflings.
Yeah, that was kind of the ironic part. But there is a secret with Gabriel that no one knows about, so you'll be finding that out probably in season 2.
Eyes emoji.
Eyes emoji.
NPC for myself who I've been enjoying. He also does kind of fall into villain, but I love him anyway. Valdis is.
I knew you were going to say Valdis.
He's one of my favorites. Oh man, so he showed up at the very beginning of our finale, and he outwitted the player characters in such a fun way. So a tiny bit of context. He is one of the like higher members of the evil organization they've been up against the whole campaign, you know? And his day job is a ringmaster of a circus of. So he is a charismatic and intelligent villain, whereas a lot of their past villains have been very big and scary, you know? And this is just this like 5'3" teeth boy who doesn't seem that imposing. And then you discover his plan was to like sick the earlier weaker bosses once again at the party for the sake of them getting basically for the sake of him stealing stuff off enemies, so that way he could have a conglomeration of powers.
Mm-hmm.
He knew the fellow villains would fail because they did already. He was able to work them up and get them excited to try again, knowing they'd lose. And from there, he just became this very gray area character of, is he helping the party? Is he hurting the party? And
he's definitely been one of the more complex NPCs in the campaign.
Yeah, and I will say next week his moment next week is one of my favorites ever. Because, minor spoiler, he just has a full-on villain because the leader of this evil organization has left him out to dry, and his plan that he thought of to rake in the party is now going to be used on a much more nefarious purpose in a much more evil way than even he was anticipating, and he's realizing now he's in over his head and doesn't know what to do. And it was such a fun scene to play out with two of my players, Andre and Finley, who are stern and serious characters who basically went in there ready to kill Valdez for something he did prior. And then they just see him drunk off his ass and just mumbling to himself about how everyone's gonna die and it's all his fault. And it was just such a fun twist to pull on these players who had nothing but hate for him. And now they see him. And it was just a really fun moment. Super cool to pull that on the players and just keep Valdez in a state of evil but almost understanding.
Sympathetic villain.
Yeah, especially since the other antagonist arc is the big bad evil who has no redeeming quality whatsoever. It was fun to pair him almost redeemable,
Mm-hmm.
I love Valdez a lot. Shay plays him in one of the RPs in 20SA too, and she does a great job of his character. I've actually taken a lot of inspiration from her writing Valdez into the way he's been portrayed in the show because of how she just does a fucking excellent job with the character.
Nice.
So yeah. So I think that way overboard answers that question.
I don't really have any contribution since I'm not actively playing any campaigns.
That's fair.
I'm still upset that I missed the chance to. Well, we put off. I was gonna play a one shot on Monday. No, I was gonna play one shot on Sunday that my friend was running, and it was inspired by the SCP Foundation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it was like he took a bunch of SCPs and mashed them together in this one shot, which we've put off until later this week, for various reasons. But I was going to play my Goblin Artificer, who I made as basically a joke character. His name is Jerry Rigg, so you can tell he's just a one living shitpost. And I took the Artificer class and just stripped the subclass from it, and all I gave him was one spell. He has the standard cantrips, but all I gave him was one spell. It's called Fix This, and it's like Wish but funny. When he just casts Fix This at a problem, the problem is fixed, but it operates on the rule of what would be the funniest possible thing to happen right now. So instead of, if you're facing a gap or this big old chasm, it doesn't make a bridge. You don't get a magic carpet. No, the ground snaps back into place and the chasm is gone. It's fixed.
Nice. I actually ran a Dread game based off of the SCP Foundation in the past.
Oh, really?
It's such a great setting for Dread.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Because you have a bunch of, a lot of the SCPs are very creepy, spooky,
Yeah.
Make you don't want to read them at 1 a.m. like I did with SCP-3000, and I still regret it. I thought the Shay show was that fucked me up for 2 weeks. But I also really, really like the funny ones. like 504, the tomatoes that fling themselves in the direction of bad jokes. Or the, what is it, 3108, the Nerf gun that nerfs things.
Nice.
I love those.
I like the toaster that you can only refer to it from the perspective of the toaster.
Oh, I love that one. The first person toaster. Yes.
The first person toaster.
Or there's a marine biology textbook where if you read it, you are suddenly convinced that you are a fish. I forget which one that is. I think it's in the 1800s somewhere. Maybe it's 1843. But it's just it's a textbook.
How you have this knowledge of the numbers is what boggles my mind.
I read it a lot, all right? But there's so
fair.
many. They're in the 4,000s right now. I actually tried to write an SCP at one point, and it got downvoted off the site because it was too lame, apparently. It was just a building where if you leave fish alone in it for more than 5 minutes, they disappear. That was it. That was the only anomalous thing about it. If you leave fish alone in the building for more than 5 minutes, you come back and they're gone.
Nice.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's my tangent.
I think
we have one last question from the Silver Dusk, it looks like. Thank you, Silver. And this, I think we can all have some good insight on. And it says, what is the best thing you've used to get the players involved in the world building? And how do you do it to get them involved like deeper?
I use their fucking backstories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I did was to give them a very basic, cheat sheet of the world, and then to like grab onto when they're writing their backstory. And then when I get their backstory, I then back and forth with them about it to tie elements of that in. So then when something comes up later, they'll know like, oh, the Moonhammer Mining Company, there was something about that in my backstory, or, something like that. So like taking elements of their backstory and linking it to things in my world building is a great cheat to make them care about the things in my world building.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty solid way to do it.
I kind of did the same thing with you. Is they wrote up their backstories, and I was like, okay, you all come from different worlds, and so create your worlds. Like you guys get to create the world that you guys come from. So that was really, really fun.
Yeah,
to,
sort of
hear
like
what they came up
almost
with.
like a Stars Without Numbers sort of deal.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of that collaborative world building elements.
Yeah, and also I really love when my players make jokes, and they're too good not to include, like Fantasy OSHA and the Sea of Jamie Heinemann's. That was we talked about this briefly on the episode with Luke, but I mentioned that there's a landlocked sea in the southern hemisphere of Adrian, and there are no whales in that sea, and the sea is actually called in the local tongue a sea with a conspicuous lack of whales. And so they started going off on, oh my god, the campaign has to now be about, we have to bring whales into this sea, and I'm like, no, they're like, I'm making this shit up on the spot. I'm like, no, they're like giant walruses that fill the space. And one of my players just out of nowhere says, oh, so a whole sea of Jamie Heinemann's, and all four of us just lost our minds.
Nice.
It was great. Oh man. What was I saying? Right. World building stuff. And not Jamie Heinemann. So for me, one of my favorite, again, for next week's episode, but this, depending on when this goes out, this will be a spoiler or a Think of the Past. There was the final problem, if you will, the final antagonistic force before the finale is this location. It's more of a location than it was the river that we dubbed it, and it was this idea. The party came across this little river, and it was surrounded by different clerics and paladins. You know, and the first thing one of our characters notices, they're all from different creeds. These would be clerics who would be at each other's throats in any other situation. You know what I mean? Like they would hate each other, and yet they're standing here arm in arm, just guarding this water. And these two characters come up and explain that if you go in, you have a chance to fix the greatest mistake you ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes off from there. Different characters, I will say, on this episode, because again, I don't know when this is going out. Rowan, Sari, and Galdrea jumped in, and it was so intense. Because when that's going on, Valdis is having his breakdown with Finley and Andre, and he literally spills, yeah, no, it's a big scam. A scam I came up with and is now being used by Big Bad Evil Guy. And the idea is, it doesn't show you your greatest regret, per se, as much as the moment you were most afraid. Because the final antagonist feeds on fear, and it is lurking in this water, and it is like feasting on these people's self-inflicted fear by jumping into this water thinking they can fix the past, even though obviously they can't. And that became such a good way to convey roleplay, because these characters, I asked these players in advance, like, what would these scenes be? And holy shit, they got dark, and I was glad for. I'll just say, sorry, where her parents put her up for adoption, and
Oh, that hurt.
yeah, and Rowan saw her brother getting attacked, and Galdrea saw the life dying, and just like these horrible moments in their lives that I got to basically show them again and again and again as they tried to. And it was such a dark antagonistic force, but it did a great job of making these characters have these tragic moments. They really, and the players did amazingly at feeling them, you know? So when the threaded part of their backstory, not just in the sense of like implementing aspects, but like when the threat is directly attacking them in their heart, you know? That is, to me, that's one of the best ways to get them interested.
Yeah.
Then again,
All
you
right.
can't. You could only pull that so many times before they fucking pitchforks and torch raid you out of the.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Seems like a pretty solid answer. Oh, that was. Oh, there you go. B.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds way better.
Okay. Is it time?
I had a couple more questions just about Voidfarer.
Go for it.
I was really curious how the original idea of the Voidfarer campaign came about, and I think you may have talked about this in your first Q&A session on the Voidfarer, but I want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did mention it in the first Voidfarer Uncharted, which is what we're calling our little like Q&As and hangout like bonus episodes that we were doing over on our podcast. But it came about just because we were trying to do something different, you know. Originally, back when myself and my friends under the umbrella Project Derailed, which is basically the website that we created as the platform to do whatever nerdy ideas came to us, whether they're blog posts or videos or streams or podcasts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the brand we created for that. And we were dabbling with doing regular Twitch streams, but that was proven to be a little bit kind of difficult logistically to continue doing. But originally, what became Voidfarer was originally conceived as a potential Twitch stream. And then we kind of, as I got into, listening to actual play podcasts a little bit more, I was like, oh no, actually, I think we could do it as a podcast. And then the fact that it's like Spelljammer came about because I originally wanted to do D&D, but space fantasy. And then after the fact, I learned more and more about Spelljammer. And I'm like, well, actually, this is kind of, not too far off from what I was already in mind. Plus, it's a great callback to a setting that a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for. Plus, Treasure Planet's fucking cool.
Yeah,
it is.
So like kind of that aesthetic with D&D and everything kind of fell into place. And the more I read about Spelljammer, the more I fell in love with it. And so that's kind of how we landed on that.
Yeah, actually, Voidfarer was my first exposure to Spelljammer. I had no idea it even existed, but now I'm like, I told some of my university friends here about it, and one of them is just like constantly begging me, "You got to run a Spelljammer campaign, please. I want to play Treasure Planet." I'm like, "Okay, just give me some time. I got to think."
Nice. Well, what's really weird is that like Spelljammer at the time when it first came out, I guess, was super polarizing. Because it's a really weird setting. There's lots of weirdness, but I think there's a lot there that can be taken and reinvented and stuff to kind of like lean into that weirdness and kind of make it something unique and kind of shun and leave behind a lot of the other that kind of dragged it down and not so great. So you're kind of taking the best and leaving the rest, which is the great thing about, kind of reinventing that setting, not only were we updating it for 5th edition, but we also set it like hundreds of years after when like the Spelljammer publications would have came out. So it gives us the freedom to like say how the world has advanced and kind of give us some plausibility in that regard. So it's been a blast kind of playing in that sandbox.
Yeah, my current ideas. Sorry, my current ideas are. I actually have an idea for a one shot, but I'm a huge space nerd. I mean, my major is space science. So
same. I went to space camp.
Really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I got to go to space camp twice when I was a freshman in high school. It was a blast. I was a huge space nerd growing up.
Yeah, but I'm very passionate about like being faithful to like the laws of physics and how space actually works. So reading about Spelljammer, I understand that it's like fantasy, but the idea of crystal spheres is a little to me. It's a little too 14th century in my mind. So I kind of want to take that and do it more along the lines of Treasure Planet, where there are actually, star systems all in the one aether, or even just in actual space. And then I found out, I was talking to an old friend of mine from my scout troop, and he mentioned a system called hyperlanes, which is D&D 5th edition converted for science fiction. So instead of magic, you have super science and such. And I've downloaded the PDF. It's by Scrivened Publications.
Nice.
And it's really, really cool. So now I'm having, big ideas about, oh man, I could really do something with this.
It's kind of like that, like Starfinder approach that Paizo and Pathfinder was doing.
Yeah.
Where it's fantasy, but more science fiction space travel than pure fantasy space travel.
Yeah. Same thing with 20SA. The genre for that I've found is called arcane punk, where it's magic, but it's like magitech. And this would specifically be like space arcane punk. So yeah. I'm also like really enamored with the idea of zero gravity in spaceships. Like artificial gravity is convenient, but sometimes it's just more convenient and more fun to play around in zero gravity. So no artificial gravity. You all have to make dex checks constantly.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the bigger hurdles I had with Spelljammer as well, because like I love the idea of realistic interpretation of space. And I do still try to incorporate some of those elements like within the context of a crystal sphere, like the idea of like, you know, potentially like supernovae and nebulas and that sort of thing. And theoretically you could create a crystal sphere that is large enough that it has a universe inside it that is more than just a solar system, but like a series of solar systems and stuff. Like the great thing about Spelljammer is there really isn't a limit to the creativity that you can do inside the confines of a crystal sphere. Like shit, there's crystal spheres where there's like giant star beasts of like a harlequin that is juggling the worlds, and it's like, you know, or like things like Discworld, you know, like where the whole world is flat and on the back of a giant tortoise stack. The possibility for that sort of thing is built into Spelljammer. So you could go from that all the way to something that is more, you know, realistic, and still keep it within like kind of the framework that Spelljammer has provided. So once I kind of grasped my head around that, I became a lot more comfortable with leaning into a lot of the like kind of weird fantasy elements of the Spelljammer setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I agree, like space is just cool anyway. You know,
oh yeah,
like space in reality is super fascinating and cool. And I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, there's just, it's, even though there are rules, it's just a massive sandbox of imagination.
For sure.
And I love the different synonyms that people use for it, actually. Like, you know, the great void, the black, the big nothing is one of my personal.
Oh, nice.
The big nothing. Credits to Star Tripper for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I actually recently wrote an entire rant about, okay, here's what space is like.
Mm-hmm.
And the rules are: space is big, light is fast, everything is moving, gravity is the law of the land, inertia cannon will liquefy you, and relativity sucks, but you can ignore it if you're sneaky.
Nice.
It was a long rant. I read it.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I put like a Google Doc link in the show notes?
I actually put it up on my Tumblr, so I can send you that link.
Yeah, that works. But anyway, do you have any more questions, Spy, or do you think it's time for our ending ritual?
I think it is time. I think it is time we subject our guest to the horrors of Cursed Homebrew.
So, for those uninitiated, Cursed Homebrew is a segment I came up with where I scour the D&D 5e wiki for the worst of the worst.
Boy.
And
boy, I can't wait.
And
last week it was Mariokin, and I suggested something to B, and he teased it at the very end.
And I hate it, and I hate you for fucking making me find this. But
hey, you could have said no. This was your choice.
You challenged me at my honor as a Cursed Homebrew finder, and I had to fucking... This is a longer post, so I'm going to warp around it, which is the biggest hint. Ladies and gentlemen, the 5e class, Sans. That's it. That's the name.
Sans Undertale.
It's the class. I don't understand.
I have questions.
We may have answers. I cannot promise.
Okay.
I have more concerns than questions.
That's probably a better, yeah.
I'm going to read the first paragraph and then jump around to some significantly awful things. A lone skeleton comes up against the massive ancient red dragon. As the dragon unleashes a hellish blast of flame, it notices that the skeleton is suddenly behind him. The skeleton says, "Did you really expect me to just stand there?" and disappears again. All of a sudden, the dragon is slammed into the roof of the cave and becomes suddenly spiked through the ceiling. All around the dragon, massive skulls float, charging multiple lasers. As the ashes of the dragon slowly float away, a single blue eye glows in the darkness and then vanishes. I fucking hate this writer so much.
God. This is so horrible. And is there an April Fool's Day tag on this one?
No!
Oh, this is serious. We're really in it now, folks.
There are 2 tags, though. This page is incomplete and or lacking flavor. Reason: almost no class page is in a finished state when it is first posted. This page is of questionable balance. Reason: the features need to state how often they can be used.
What?
Oh, no.
Isn't that like the one thing that should be done? Like, if you do anything with your class feature, you need to say how often it can be used.
So, god damn it. This has to be a meme, but they somehow avoided the April Fool's tag, and I hate them for it. Okay, there's so much. They do get extra attack. There are these things called shortcuts, which is a long ass post, which I won't read. But due to your incredibly low hit points, you've developed a way to avoid getting damaged in battles by totally legit methods. You gain 3 plus your dex bonus plus your proficiency bonus endurance hit points that regen on a long rest. Do I have to keep reading this? They've made so much. All your attacks bypass resistances and immunities at level 5.
Wait,
Your short
hold on.
Be worse.
At level 5, bypass all resistances and immunities.
Yep. It's called
This
totally
is so
cheated.
broken.
Poison
It's called
has
what?
It's the ability is called totally cheating.
Okay.
I mean, that
at
tracks.
least they're upfront about it.
This is satire. This has to be satire.
There's no way this is serious. But somehow it doesn't have the satire tag.
Whether this is serious or not, you have to think that somebody sat down with their time
Yeah.
and did this.
This time they're
What?
never going to get back.
Hang on, B, when was this created?
Good question. Let me look.
Because if it was created in the last couple of weeks, then yeah, okay. They're in quarantine.
Fair.
They just want to fuck around. But any other point in history has no excuse.
I cannot find. It's asking me to edit the page. I don't want to do that. I don't want to dirty my hands with this. Get away from me.
We're discussing it live on a podcast. We're as dirty as we can be right now.
Yeah.
I need to take a shower.
It gets 3 extra attacks. I hate this class.
Oh god.
This has to be a joke. I will jump to the worst things ever. At level 18, you get a bad time. Using an action, you can tell your enemies that they will have a bad time. If the battle continues for the next 5 turns, all your techniques do 2d6 extra damage. Fucking broken, and I hate it. At level 20, you've developed ways to fight against your worst enemies. You can only use this attack when you're within 40 hit points or less. You will spend your action and bonus action to make your special attack using all your energy.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. Someone's knocking on the door. I gotta be right back.
Oh god, it's Sans.
He knows.
It was Sans. He hears us talking shit. Holy fuck. The
The sun is shining, flowers are blooming, owl bears are chirping.
Fuck you!
Days like this, adventurers like you should be rotting in a dungeon.
I hate it so much. Do I have to keep reading more of this shit?
Oh no.
I will state at second level techniques they get is like their version of like warlock invocations, and it's basically just the abilities from the Sans fight in Undertale.
Oh good
With how
god.
Master Blasters, Bone Walls, the whole shebang.
Oh no.
It is a wordy class.
Someone took hours out of their time to create this monstrosity.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
No problem.
I was just saying, I was just saying they have techniques, which is their version of warlock invocations, and it's basically just their way of fitting everything from the Sans fight into this one fucking D&D post. And the amount of effort that must have gone into this terrifies me.
This is horrible, and I'm so glad that we got to find it.
B.
Yeah.
So I know we're running low on time, and this was kind of the end, but not only can you play Sans as a 5e homebrew class, you can also play Font Skeletons as a 5e homebrew race.
Motherfucker!
No!
Oh,
Thought I'd throw that out there.
Oh, this is so
in case
bad.
you wanted to go 100% really bad idea, you can do that.
D&D campaign genocide route speedrun.
Don't you fucking talk!
Does that make Chris a murder hobo? Or sorry, Frisk? Does that make Frisk a murder hobo?
No, guys. Fuck, it doesn't. It does exist. Okay. The biggest what the fuck? The Font Skeleton race does have the April Fool's tag. The Sans class does not.
Oh boy.
The D&D homebrew wiki is the lawless west.
Oh my god. It's just... I mean, between the Mobians, the Mario Kin, and Sans, we are truly just deep in bad territory.
Guys,
how are we going to top this?
we're gonna have to like deviate from the video game scene, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's been our like we started with just a chicken, and then we kind of sunk deeper into the tar pit that is video game bullshit.
Oh god.
And
Yeah.
now I'm kind of video gamed out. I think we've already made Wreck-It Ralph in D&D, so like I think we're good. I think we're good from there, unless you guys want the Halo Spartan.
Didn't we already do that though? We definitely mentioned it.
We mentioned its existence, but I didn't really go into it. Admittedly, though, the world of Halo could make for an interesting game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the folks in our server was talking about their grandma is running an Elder Scrolls campaign for them, which is just the coolest
Awesome.
shit.
So, like, video games have a place in the tabletop world, but Sans doesn't. Please no. Get him away. Stop. I'm not ending 2 episodes with Megalovania Spy.
I'm not asking you to.
All right. I think my mental breakdown over Sans is enough to
Need
satiate.
a nap now.
Yeah, enough to satiate the bloodlust of our listeners.
Oh man. All right. Well, it was so great having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
It was so much fun.
These always are great.
I may have been fanboying the entire time you were here. So just,
Yeah. Ditto.
No, keep going. This is great for my ego.
Okay. Settle in for the next 3 hours, buddy.
Oh, God.
All right, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye. Oh, actually, wait. No.
Oh,
What?
no.
Ah!
No.
Nick, how can people find what you're doing? Because we were about to let this episode end without letting you plug this.
Alrighty. Well, my name is Nick Uroseva. You could follow me on Twitter at Nick_Uroseva. That's spelled Uroseva. I am the DM of Tales of the Voidfarer. You can follow Tales of the Voidfarer on Twitter at VoidfarerPod and at Voidfarer Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Our new episodes are every other Tuesday, but we are taking a little hiatus until just to get out in front of our production schedule a little bit. So the good news is the whole first 2 chapters are available for your binging pleasure while you're in quarantine. So the premiere of chapter 3 will be on April 28th.
Oh, that's so far away.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But for anybody who's just learning about Voidfarer, it's also going to be a great jumping.
Oh, yeah, you can catch up on all of the episodes in that time.
Yeah.
It's
All right.
very good and our high recommendation. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Stay moist.
Bye.
Bro!